Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you another video. Today, I'm back. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Hopefully everyone's doing practice on self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true. And I know 56 people just did that, and they built themselves up, did the next right thing, and did everything that they could, because that's how many people went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done since my last video. And it's always amazing for me how many people rap and rock with the Fill in the Gaps community, and how many people on this list were doubting themselves, beating themselves up, and saying, Phil, I don't even know if I should be a social worker anymore. I don't even know if I should take the test, because there's a lot of people that failed the exam before on this list and was like, man, I think it's over for me. I'm not sure if I can do this. The ASWB is against me. But 56 people went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, and got the job done. And they are as follows: Joel M, Jasmine R, Melinda D, Alicia J, Wendy D, Shobi Z, Peyton C, Lily B, Bev W, Cheryl W, Diana M, Brianna J, Vicky H, Allie C, Kaya W, Donna W, Ash H, Catherine A, Marquise R, Natalie R, Kimberly T, Brittany D, Megan N, Shyla P, Ashley R, Michelle G, VC, Francis L, Jasmine T, Daniel F, Natalie B, Emily E, Jordan H, Lily F, Beatrice B, Emily W, Cameron L, India E, Emma G, Julia N, Kate G, Sophia M, Chelsea T, Mike R, Josh M, Nakaya W, Kate M, Kathy HB, Tabitha C, Zariah B, Monica T, Franelise A, Elizabeth N, Tariq E, Gabe L, and Mary G. And I'm so excited, man. Like I said, so many people on that list were like, man, I don't think it's right for me. I'm not even sure if I can get this done. Or, man, I've never taken the exam before. Should I take the exam? Should I push it off? My friend said that I'm not going to be able to do this. They're doing this. They're doing that, and all these different things. And that's why I always say, do not let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true, including yourself. Because if people on that list would have doubted themselves, teared themselves down, and not gotten to that next level, they would have never been able to do the next right thing for themselves, which is to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, get the job done, and get their license and live the life that they want to see for themselves. And if you pass the exam while rapping and rocking with me as well, you can send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, and I'll add your name to the shout out list in the future. And if you're like, man, Phil, I want to rap and rock with you as well, I'm not sure what I should do, or man, I'm doubting myself, tearing myself up, and I'm not sure what I should do, the easiest way to rap and rock with me are my Sunday study groups that are from Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host, and those sessions are going over content areas as well as practice questions, not to memorize anything, but ways for you to be able to recognize and apply to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. And the next Sunday study groups are as follows: 5-7 client interventions. So going over the individual client modality, CBT, DBT, solution focused, task centered, behavioral modification, as well as the family modalities, Bowen's, structural and strategic family therapies, and going over practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 514 practice questions, so going over the types of questions that you can see on the exam, myths that people spread about the exam, identifying different tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind as they're going into the exam and preparing to go into the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done, and then practice question related to those. And I always say, do not come to the practice question sessions trying to get every single question right, because a lot of times people will rep and rock with other practice questions or be like, man, I think I'm ready for the exam, and then come into my session and it is way more difficult than the actual exam. So again, the questions that I write are more difficult than the actual exam. So do not come into the session expecting to get everything correct. But also, if you're not getting as many correct as you want to, don't try to reschedule your exam, but understand what you're missing and what are some things that you can do to make adaptations to your process in the future. The next one after that is 521, human developmental theories, Erickson, PJ, and Koberg, and going through different practice questions related to those. And again, it's not ways to memorize anything, but ways to be able to recognize and apply it, because a lot of times people will try to be a computer or a walking social work encyclopedia, and then they get into the exam and they're not able to actually have flexibility and be able to answer the questions in the way that they need to. The next one after that is 528, going over the acronym, safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene, and practice questions related to those. And again, do not come to that session expecting to get every single question correct, because the questions I construct tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam, because I would rather have you go through a difficult situation outside of the exam than to go inside of the exam, have a difficult time, and beat yourself up, tear yourself down, and not be able to get to that next level. The next one after that is 6.4, research, program development, and program evaluation. So going over the steps of research, the different types of research, the different considerations related to it, assent, consent, also identifying what are the lengths of time for research, then going over the steps of program development, and then tearing it apart and doing program evaluation, and then practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 6.11, DSM-5 adults, going over the personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2 disorders, and then the medications. But again, these are not ways to memorize anything, but ways to be able to differentiate the diagnosis, because a lot of times people are able to understand the criteria, but when it comes to a question, they freeze and they're like, well, this isn't how that I studied it. So you want to make sure that your way that you're practicing is how you're going to perform. The next one after that is 6.18, community interventions, going over the types of advocacy, going over the stages of community organizing, also going over different ways to differentiate all of these different concepts, and then practice questions related to those. And again, these are paid study groups, and they start at 7 p.m. Eastern time and go until they kick us out. So traditionally, the length of time is 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours long. And if you're not able to stay for the entire session, as long as you register, you will receive the recording and the materials to review at your own leisure. If you want any information related to those, then send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title. And as I stated, you don't have to attend these sessions live, or you don't have to stay the entire time, because the sessions are recorded and you'll be able to review them at your own leisure, as well as I do still offer individual tutoring sessions. So if you want to rep and rock with me directly, review practice questions, review concepts, just talk about your preparation and how to prepare in the future, it's 100% possible. If you want any information related to that, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which is the view more under the title. And I appreciate every single person that reps and rocks with me. It's always a lesson, a blessing, and an opportunity for me to be able to help in any way that I possibly can, as well as the next one-day course is going to be on June 10th, so 6/10, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. They can't kick us out. I'm the host. So that session traditionally, I say, is 12 hours long, but it's traditionally going to be 13, 14 hours long, and it is going to pack the most amount of materials and information that I possibly can. So if you're struggling to prepare for the exam, you're feeling unmotivated for the exam, you've tried other programs, you're not really sure what is missing or what you're not understanding, the one-day course is what I would recommend, because it packs the biggest punch and is the most amount of time that you're able to spend with me, and I try to give as much as I possibly can in that session. The one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've ever been able to do, because the individuals that have attended other courses or other situations come to that course and say, holy cow, this makes a lot more sense, or man, this is broken down in a practical way. And the questions tend to be more difficult than any other sessions that I have, because it's one, more of an investment, but also two, I want to make sure that I give you guys as much as I possibly can. So the one-day course is the tips that I find most helpful for people to keep in mind as they are preparing for, as well as to go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, get the job done. And the most common reasons why people fail the exam, because what better way to understand what not to do than to learn from the people that have failed before. Mixture of topics: subpoena versus court order, operant conditioning, the personality disorders, schizophrenia spectrum, bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2 disorders, the medications, the acronym, safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. The 6-step process that I recommend every single person to keep in mind as they're breaking down the questions and then going through difficult practice questions. Again, do not expect to come into these sessions and get it every single question correct, because the questions that I construct tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So do not beat up on yourself, don't tear yourself up, but build yourself up to become the best possible version of yourself. If you want to register for the one-day course, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below in the description, which will have the one-day course registration. And if you're not able to attend the one-day course live or all the way through, when you register, it'll add your name and send you the recording and the materials to review at your own leisure. If your exam is prior to 6/10 and you want to get a previously recorded one-day course, it's 100% possible. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, and I will give you the information and payment information to purchase the previously recorded version. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single person that has ever attended a Sunday study group, one-day course, or has been rapping and rocking with me in any way, shape, or form. As well as, for those that do not know, Audible is continuing to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to rap and rock with me and support me, then you can go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. Get yourself a free book, and it helps me out every single time that you register for that. And if you're like, man, Phil, what's Audible? Audible's an easy way to get information on the go. So if you want to become the best possible version and you're busy just like me, then Audible is an easy way to do that via audiobooks. And if you want to rep and rock with me and support me, again, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial and get yourself a free book. And if you're like me and Phil, what book should I get with the free book? There are a couple that I would recommend. The Alchemist, Outliers, Archer, as well as UOOU. Each of them will have lessons and blessings, not just to help you build yourself up professionally, but also personally to become the best possible version of yourself. And I appreciate every single one of you that has signed up for the Audible affiliate link, because it's the easiest way to support me and cost you absolutely nothing. And if you haven't already, hit the like button down below, which is the thumbs up button next to the title, because it helps other amazing social workers just like you rep and rock with me and find me as well. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification next to it, because it will send you an email every single time that I upload a video. And there is a free study group that's coming up relatively recent, and you don't want to miss any of the videos that I put out. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single person that has subscribed. At this point, there are over 36,000 people that have repped and rocked with the Fill in the Gaps community, and it's amazing for me. And it's just wild to think how many people have been a part of this Fill in the Gaps community and that have found benefit. And if you haven't already, put a comment down below, something that you're looking forward to, something that you're working through, an accomplishment that you made, or you passed the exam as well, because I read every single comment. I try to respond to as many as I possibly can. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. And if you haven't already, check out my podcast at Fill in the Gaps on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify, because it is going to pack more information that you can rep and rock with me as well. And again, it's amazing to me how many people are in the Fill in the Gaps community. This video is going to be going over practice questions. So if you are new to my style, or if you've been repping and rocking with me for a decent amount of time, you know that the questions are going to be packing a hefty punch. But again, do not feel like you have to memorize anything or be able to be perfect, but understand that as you're going through the questions, that you want to gain something from every single question. And there will be a timestamp down below, or the time where the questions are going to start. But before we get into that, there are some things that are on my mind that I want to share with you guys. And every time that I'm going through something, or every time that a thought comes to my mind, I want to share it with you guys. For those that rock with me heavy, there's some things that have been going through my mind, and working with people, there are things that we can learn from them. And a lot of what I've been hearing from people is that, man, Phil, I'm failing the exam. Man, I'm doing this program, I'm doing that other program, I'm doing all these different things, and I don't know what the problem is. And I always have to tell people, the problem is that when you have so much exposure to different materials or different strategies, different techniques, and all these different things, it makes you question everything that you've ever known, because you're trying to do what they told you to do. So what came to me is, do not abandon yourself or your own thoughts. Don't abandon yourself in order to avoid being abandoned. Because when people fail the exam, they feel like they're being abandoned, or they're being disconnected from other people, or, man, I've let this program down, or I've let this down. But the problem with that analysis is that you are changing and making adaptations to yourself, and you're taking away from what you know to be true. Because as I'm working with people, they're breaking down questions, and they're like, Phil, I think it's this answer, but they say it's this other answer, or this other program told me this, or, man, my university told me that, or this said that. And it's like, what does that mean to you, though? Like, I don't care what anyone else says. I don't care what a program says. I don't care what a book says. I don't care what your university says, your supervisor, your coworker, anybody. But what do you think? So don't abandon yourself in order to avoid being abandoned, because once you start getting away from your own thoughts and you start inserting things into your mind that may not even be present, you start questioning everything that you know to be true. Because when you go into a situation with your mind made up, your mind is going to create facts that are going to dictate how you act. So if you've convinced yourself like, man, this exam's against me, or, man, this other program knows more than I know, or, man, this other video, or this person over here, or this thing, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this, you start losing your ability to discern through different things in order to create concern within your life, but also create certainty. So when you're in that mode of like, what should I do, or what am I missing? You got to boil it down and say, what do I think? Because on the other side of the spectrum, I've worked with people that were going through questions, and they're fighting me every question. They're saying, Phil, I don't understand this. And I explain it and break it down in multiple different ways. And they're like, nope, you're wrong. And it's like, okay, so then why are you asking me the question? And it's not because I'm angry at the person, but it's like, if you're already having your mind made up and you already think you know the answer, and if you already think that you have enough to go on the exam, then what are you doing? And it's not because I don't want to work with people. It's if you already have your mind made up, and if you already think that you know enough, and if you already have what you need, then go on the exam and destroy it. But if you're going to the exam with your mind made up, you have a backpack full of answers, you already think that you know everything before you're getting into the test, but you're not successful in the exam, there you have to boil it down and say, is my mind too closed? Because way too many times people will have a closed mind and say, man, I got a 4.0, man, I got this degree, or man, I got an advanced degree, or I got this over here, or I'm killing it in my job and doing all these things. And it's like, those are great. I'm not taking away from those things. I'm glad you have those things. But if you are not doing things in a certain way, or if you're doing something in a way that you're coming into the exam already having all the answers prescribed to you, and you're going into the exam not reading the questions, you're half reading, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're drinking honey before the exam, you're doing jumping jacks, you're drinking juice in the locker, you're going with first, next best, most, and should, feeling, gather information, CPS, and you already have those things in your mind because you're like, I'm good. I've been told by that person that it's going to work, or this program says this, and all of these different things. But then you go into the exam and get folded like a deck of cards. Then you have to really analyze. And it's not always you being the problem. It's the strategies and techniques that you've been told may not be the right ones for you. And then what I'm saying is, if you are in a position where you're like, man, I don't know what to do, start digging deeper and finding out what you did before you let anybody influence yourself. Because again, if you go into a situation with everything already made up, you know what? I need to just look for this answer. I need to read the last sentence. I need to do first, next, best, most, and should. I need to go with this. I need to do this. I need to do that. It's always safety. It's always this. Then you're not even reading the exam. And it always breaks my heart when people are like, man, Phil, they told me that I should go with this answer, even though I think it's this answer. But people told me that I shouldn't go with the answer that I'd go with in real practice because the exam is disconnected from real practice. So I need to go in with this different mode and a different mindset. Well, guess what? You may be going into the exam, and if you would have picked your answer, you wouldn't be having this conversation or watching this video because you would have already destroyed it and teared its heart out. So that's what I'm telling you is way too many social workers that are amazingly gifted are starting to do different things that they know they shouldn't be doing, but they're doing it because somebody told them they should do it, or they're doing it because they think that it's going to be the silver bullet or the magic trick or all these different lucky things. But again, you got to boil it down and say this exam is being able for you to utilize the information you know, but absolutely you being able to apply the information. Because the more that you know, the more informed you're going to be, but the more that you know, the more you're going to be able to grow. Because what also came to my mind is growth. The word growth in general is what we all strive for as humans. However, if you become successful, or if you get to a certain point in your life, you might be like, I'm good. My foot is off the pedal. I've already grown enough. But the problem with that analogy and an emphasis on that is once you stop doing things or start getting into that mode of like, I already know everything, you lose your curiosity. But how you got to this point is being curious and asking questions. But if you're in that mode of like, you know what, I'm not getting where I want to go, or I'm not doing the things that I should be doing because X, Y, and Z is not working out, but have you upgraded anything that you're doing? So what I'm saying is growth doesn't come from everything you do right. Growth doesn't always come from the best situations. Growth doesn't always come from you getting what you want the first time. Growth comes from going into situations without certainty, because it's the situations where you have curiosity of like, you know, I'm going to give it the best shot, and this is what I think is going to be right. But if I don't know it, or if I don't have what I need, I'm going to get more information along the way. So you go into a situation without certainty and continue going, you're going to come out with the right information, because information is going to change your situation. But if you're going into a situation like, you know what, it's this, I don't even have to read it. Or man, I don't even need to listen, or I don't need to make any changes to my life because I'm already perfect and doing everything right. It's like, but what are you going to get from this situation? Because if you're going through a situation and going through the motions, you're not going to be understanding where you're coming from. So it's not enough to get the right answer. It's not enough just to show up anymore. You got to identify what you need to do as you're doing that. And I'm not saying that you should avoid things or that you should postpone until you're perfect. What I'm saying is, if you show up, you best have an open mind and an open heart to identify what you can get from the situation. But if you're going into a situation like, you know what, I'm just doing it because somebody else told me to do it, that ain't their life. So if they're telling you what you're supposed to be doing, but you ain't understanding why they're telling you that you're supposed to be doing it, or if you're not getting anything from the situations you're going through, it's as good as not showing up at all or not even going at all. So don't just show up. You need to identify what you need to be doing at that given moment and saying, what can I take from this? Because every time you go through a situation, it should give you an experience. And every time that you do something, it should lead you to where you want to go. But if you're just putting in energy and just putting in time and saying, well, they say I got to do this, or man, they say I need to be doing that, but you don't understand why you're doing the things that you're doing, it's as good as that you didn't do them at all. So that's my push, is don't just go through a situation, or don't just take every piece of information somebody's telling you to do. Man, my supervisor says to do this. Man, this book over here says I need to do that. Man, this development thing is telling me to do this. Man, this other person's told me to eat cereal. This other person's telling me to go with the like. I need to be liked by everybody else. Or man, people are telling me to read the last sentence. First, next, best, most, and should. Or man, this person's telling me that I need to be only studying these questions, and their questions are way easier. But when you show me a question, Phil, I want to give up and run away from it. But it's like, but what is the purpose of why you're going through practice questions? Because practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So if you're going into a situation saying you're not getting enough things right, if you're going into a situation saying, you know what, I already know this, well, you got to humble yourself down, and you got to sit your tush down and make sure that you actually know what you know. Because if you are in a situation and the question's asking you to pull something out of your mind, but you're like, I've never read that before, but then you look back at what you studied, it was clearly in your mind, but you didn't study it in a way that made sense to you, and you're just kind of robotically going through the motions, then you're going to be putting yourself back into the line and going back into the exam over and over and over. Because you have to be willing to have that openness and being willing to make adaptations. Because it's not that you don't have everything, but if you don't recognize what you have and you continue to put more onto yourself and keep doing all these different things just because somebody else is doing it, and just because somebody else told you that you should be doing it, or just because somebody told you that you should be changing or giving you feedback, or you're not getting the affirmation and validation that you think that you need at this given moment, you got to remind yourself that you're the only person that knows exactly what you know to be doing. You're the only person that can build yourself up. You're the only person that can go in the exam. You're the only person that the opinion should matter at this given moment. Because if you're not the person that's calling your own name, and if you're not telling yourself the right things, and if you're beating yourself up and having negativity and not ever having a positive thought or never giving yourself credit for anything that you're doing, it's as good as you never did anything at all. Because the person that does nothing and the person that does something but doesn't value it is the person that's going to always be in the same position. Because you could be going through something that somebody else is going through, but it's the person that's never experienced that. It's the person that had nothing when they came into the situation that's going to come out with the most amount of information and blessings and lessons. And that's what I always tell people. It's not what you go through that makes you who you are. It's who you are while doing that and who you become. Because you could have somebody that goes into a training, you could go in the same training, the person's hungry, they're curious, and their mind is open, and their heart is open, but you go into the same training like, you know what, this is probably not going to be helpful for me. I already know what I'm supposed to be doing. And that person's going to get further ahead than you, because you may be missing things that you didn't know, or if you could have had different pieces of information and different ways of viewing situations, you could be further ahead. So that's my push. Don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything that you think that you know. You need to make sure that you drive it all the way into the ground, because if you know it, you best make sure that you can continue to grow from it. Because every situation and every experience, every person and everything you do should be an additional piece of fertilizer on top of your pile. But if you're like, man, I already have what I want, I'm clearly good, and the exam should change, or man, everyone around me should change, well, guess what? That's going to leave you in the same spot. But you best not be resentful. You best not be negative. You best not be tearing something down because you didn't put in the work, or you didn't do the things that you needed to do for yourself. And some people are doing too much. They're like, I'm doing this program, this program, this program, this thing, and this thing, and this thing, and this thing. But do you need all those things? Do you really need them? Are they doing anything for you? And if they're not doing anything for you, guess what? When you put your situation into where it's going to make you question everything, because when you go into a situation that makes you question what you deserve, you no longer are going to serve yourself and get to where you need to go. So that's what I'm telling you, is don't abandon yourself to stop avoiding being abandoned. Because not every time that you're alone, or not every time that you have to restart, or not every time that you're doing everything that you need for yourself, are you going to be alone. You're only alone because you're isolated. You're only alone because you're not looking in the right environment. You're not alone because if you look in your situation, in your environment, there are people that are probably building you up, but you're not wanting to hear what they have to tell you, because you would rather have somebody co-sign and tell you negative things than to build you up and tell you the things that you need to actually hear. So growth comes from going into a situation without certainty and coming out with the right information to change your situation. So if you're not where you want to go, don't be like, you know what, it's never going to happen. It's delayed, not denied. But if you keep denying the lessons and blessings, and if you keep denying the situation and the results that you get, of course you're going to continue in the same space, in the same place. So in order for you to get to different spaces and places and to start leveling up, you need to start learning and earning everything that you need with and for your situation to become who you're supposed to be, not where you thought that you should be on the timeline that you thought. We ain't all story writers and we ain't all be able to predict everything, but all we can do is produce what we know to be true. But if we produce the wrong thing, we're not the wrong person. We needed that experience to guide us in the direction that we needed to go. Because the person that's grateful for something and the person that's ungrateful for something, the major difference is their perspective of what they're getting and why they're going through the things that they're going through. And it's not always going to be the positive experiences, the brightest moments in your life that are going to tell you all these lessons and blessings, because it's oftentimes the darkest moments where you're about to lose everything and take everything away from you and question everything that you're supposed to be doing, that you're the closest that you've ever been. Because once you have no one else around you or you have no validation or external validation, you truly start validating yourself and recognizing what is important, what's not important, and where do I have to go in that future. So again, you have to be willing to call your own name. You have to be willing to support yourself. You have to be willing to have your own vision and not having the vision of somebody else, because when you start taking someone else's vision, your view is going to be jaded by what they tell you to do. And you're going to continually go in the direction where you're constantly chasing after what somebody wants you to do versus going in the direction that you know that you want to be going in. But once that situation ends, you're going to question everything about yourself, because the only person that knows where you truly want to go is the person that you were when you first started. So don't let the joy of the situation fade away when you don't get the results you want, because it's not always the results that you should be looking for. It's the progress and the lessons and blessings that can take you further along in the future. So that's what I'm telling you, is don't give up on yourself. Don't tear yourself down. Don't be willing to give up because you were close and you didn't get what you wanted. Don't be willing to give up because you're not doing the right thing at this moment and you think you have your mind made up and you're already accomplished in doing the right things, or that you don't think it's going to be possible. You have to be willing to humble yourself, take yourself down and say, what do I need in this moment to take me further along? And what do I need in that moment that's going to take me to that space and place that I need to go? And what do I need in this moment that's going to guide me further into future moments? Because everything that you go through, you should be having with you and taking with you and building yourself up. Because if you don't go through the things that you need to go through, you're not going to get to where you want to go in the future. And if you don't get to where you want to go in the future, you're going to be having resent and having negativity and saying, why not me, versus why did I not go through what I needed to get to where I wanted to go? Because it's not always the negativity that is going to take you out of where you're supposed to be going. Sometimes it's yourself telling yourself what you should be doing and not recognizing the positives of the lessons and blessings in your situation right now, because the only thing that you can control is in your present and how you respond to it. But if you're resentful that you didn't get to where you want to, well, guess what? You need to start today and get to where you want to go at this given moment. So that is what I'm telling you, is do not abandon yourself in order to stop that situation from feeling like you're abandoned. Because when you abandon yourself, you start losing your identity. And once you don't know how to identify or what you know to be true, you start questioning everything. And again, growth comes from not going through situations that are certain and that are comfortable and that you're going to be able to just blaze through. Growth comes from going into situations without certainty and coming out with the right information to change your situation and become the best possible version of yourself. And hopefully that was helpful for at least one person. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you need anything, drop me a shout. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Hope to see you in individual tutoring. Hope to see you in the Sunday study groups. Hope to see you in the one-day course. Hope to see you at any capacity. The rest of this video is going to be cutting up, breaking down questions, and tearing them up. And from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. And I'm going to drop the video and the questions right now. So again, hopefully that was helpful. And I'll see you guys in the question portion. So let's hop into the question portion of the video. And I'm going to be reading the question, breaking them down. On the left-hand side is the acronym: Safety, Feelings, Assess, Refer, Educate, Advocate, Facilitate, and Intervene. We'll be applying the acronym as applicable to the questions. We'll be identifying the type of question. And a lot of times I get questions like, may and fill. Should I worry about the color that you're highlighting with? Not necessarily. All I'm doing is just separating the information, and none of the colors really have a lot of meaning. So don't get twisted about that. So I'll be breaking it down, tearing it down. But again, do not expect yourself to get every single question correct, but understand how you're going to be able to break down and learn from every single question. So let's get into it. Question 1. A social worker working in a university counseling center is meeting with a 19-year-old male after being placed on academic probation last semester. The man reports that he feels like a failure and that all his friends are going to abandon him. The man reports a history of alcohol use and that last semester he preferred to go out with his friends rather than complete his schoolwork. The man reports that he would like to find ways to develop relationships that do not involve alcohol. What should the social worker do first in this situation? A. gather information around the man's alcohol use to ensure we understand the severity of it. B, provide information to the man about AA meetings around the area to increase the amount of support that he has. C, gather information around the relationships that the man currently has in his life to have a baseline for treatment. D, provide information to the man regarding different social groups on campus that he can attend to increase his support system. So let's look back at the question and see what we're looking at in particular. So we're a social worker in a university counseling center. That's who we are and where we are at. Meeting with a 19-year-old male. That is our client. After being placed on academic probation last semester, in a length of time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. And time lengths could be helpful because it helps us decipher when situations are occurring. Are they current? Are they in the past? Etc. The man reports that he feels like a failure and that all of his friends are going to abandon him. The man reports a history of alcohol use, and that last semester he preferred to go out with his friends rather than complete his schoolwork. In a length of time, hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So that's consistent with last semester. The man reports that he would like to find ways to develop relationships that do not involve alcohol. So that is what he's coming in for. What should the social worker do first in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how answer the question. And a lot of times me and Phil, why are you saying first, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing? They mean the same thing because the information up here is more important than this one word. And this is an application question. Why? Because it's a client syndrome that we have to react to in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym to each answer choice. Back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, gather information around the man's alcohol use to ensure we understand the severity of it. This is going to be a safety assess. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Assess, why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. B, provide information to the man about AA meetings around the area to increase the amount of support that he has. This is going to be an advocate, why A equals all by themselves, because this is where the social worker is going to provide the needed information, resources, and services to the client, and they're subsequently going to do it on their own. C, gather information around the relationships that the man currently has in his life to have a baseline for treatment. This is going to be an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. D, provide information to the man regarding different support groups on campus that he could attend to increase his support system. Advocate, why A equals all by themselves, because we're providing the needed information, resources, and services to the client, and they're subsequently going to do it on their own. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker working in community university counseling centers. That's who we are. We're social worker, university counseling center, 19-year-old male. That's our client. Academic probation last semester. You don't like the time. Hop on top of it because I'll just paint a picture of what we're looking at. So that is what was occurring. The man reports that he feels like a failure, that all of his friends are going to abandon him. The man reports that he has a history of alcohol use, and that last semester, you don't like the time, hop on top of it because I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at. He preferred to go out with his friends rather than complete his schoolwork. And the man reports that he would like to find ways to develop relationships that do not involve alcohol. So keep all in mind as we go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out B. Why? Nowhere in the question does it state that the man finds that he needs to go to AA meetings or that alcohol is the primary focus of what he actually wants to address. So us just jumping like a cat that got squirted with water into action, being like, you know what? You don't want to have relationships with people that use alcohol? Well, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a place that you would be able to find the amount of support that you want to see, because at this given moment, we're just trying to provide a solution to him without actually understanding where he's at with and for his situation. Because he states that he feels like a failure and that all his friends are going to abandon him. So we're not just going to uproot him and say, you know what, all of your friends are likely going to abandon you, so AA is the way. So you need to find yourself into a meeting and then identify that these are going to be your new friends. We're also going to rule out D. Why? Because again, similar to B, I'm just jumping like a cat that got squirted with water in action and having my cape on ready to rescue him, being like, you know what, you want people that don't have alcohol in their life and that You want relationships? How about we give you different social groups on campus? Because we cannot guarantee that the social groups that we refer him to are going to be alcohol free and are going to be drug free. Therefore, we may be connecting him to individuals that are still consuming alcohol because it's not actually understanding where the client is at. So now we're in between A and C. A, gather information around the man's alcohol use to ensure that we understand the severity of it. Or C, gather information around the relationships that the man currently has in his life to provide a baseline for treatment. Let's look back at the question. We're a social worker, University Counseling Center. That's who we are and where we're at. 19-year-old male, academic probation, last semester, so it's relatively recent. Any length of time, hop on top of it because I'll expand the picture of what we're looking at. The man reports that he feels like a failure and that all of his friends are going to abandon him, so he only feels that way. We're unsure if that's actually true. The man reports that he has a history of alcohol use, and that last semester that he preferred to go out with his friends rather than complete his coursework. So that's what brought him into us, because that's why he's on academic probation. And now he states that he would like to develop relationships with people that do not involve alcohol. So would I, A, hey, tell me about your alcohol use, because one, you're 19 and underage, and I need to understand, are you currently drinking alcohol, and what is your use actually like at this moment? Or C, tell me about the relationships that you currently have in your life, so that way I can understand whether you have relationships that don't involve alcohol or not. So for that reason, we're going to rule out C. Why? Because we are not going to ask him, what relationships do you have in your life right now, to understand if he has people that don't have alcohol in their lives, because at this moment, he's a 19-year-old individual, so he's underage, he's on academic probation, and that's why he's here at the University Counseling Center, because he would prefer to drink alcohol with his friends rather than going out and doing that schoolwork on his own, and he wants to find relationships that do not involve alcohol. So the correct answer here is A, gather information around the man's alcohol use, because again, he's underage, and we need to figure out what is going on at this moment, because if he's currently drinking alcohol, he's not going to be able to connect with people in relationships that do not involve alcohol, because his alcohol use could be a barrier at that given moment. B is incorrect, because nowhere in the question is it stating that he needs an AA meeting or that he views his alcohol use as a primary issue of concern and that he doesn't have anyone in his life at this moment. So B is trying to solve a problem and only reading the last sentence of like developing relationships. So you know what? You want support? AA is the way. C is incorrect, so I'm not going to ask him about the relationships he currently has, because in order for me to ensure that he has relationships that do not involve alcohol, I need to understand if he is using alcohol, and if he is, he would be the problem in his own barrier at that moment. In addition to that, C, he says he feels like all of his friends are going to abandon him and not want to be around him. Therefore, we're going to imagine that none of his friends are going to maintain sobriety or have alcohol absent in their life. And D's incorrect, I'm not going to be like, you know what, let me give you a list of social groups on campus, because I can't guarantee that those support groups or those individuals are going to be without alcohol, because his primary situation is that he needs to maintain sobriety and to complete his schoolwork in order to get off academic probation and to become the best possible version of himself. So the correct answer is A, gather information around the man's alcohol use, because again, that's what made him not complete his schoolwork in general, because he has a history of alcohol use and he went out with his friends rather than completing his schoolwork, and he's underage, and I need to understand whether he's utilizing alcohol, because he wants to identify and find relationships that do not involve alcohol. So if he's utilizing alcohol, we're not going to be able to help him engage in relationships without it, because he would be using it and he would be the main barrier. So the correct answer here is A, gather information around the man's alcohol use to ensure we understand the severity of it, to understand where he's at, and to meet him directly where he wants to go, how he's going, but we need to understand his baseline. So the correct answer here is A, gather information around the man's alcohol use to ensure we understand the severity of it. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 2. A social worker and a family agency is meeting with a 35-year-old female for her third session upon referral of Child Protective Services to gain the custody of her children back. The woman had her children removed last month because they were left at school 3 hours past school ending, and when someone attempted to drop her children off, she was found overdosing on heroin. The woman reports that she struggles with episodes of depression and would use heroin to cope with them. Since being in treatment, she reports struggling with insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger. What is the first thing the social worker should do in this situation? A, provide information on the symptoms of withdrawal for heroin to validate what she is currently experiencing. B, provide information regarding depression to the woman and refer her to a psychiatrist to address her symptoms. C, gather information on the ways the woman has coped with depression in the past that did not involve heroin. D, facilitate discussion around the woman's situation and identify what she would like to accomplish in treatment. So let's look back at the question. We're a social worker and a family agency. That is who we are and where we are at, meeting with a 35-year-old female. That is our client for her third session. In no length of time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. Upon referral of Child Protective Services to gain the custody of her children back. So that's what brought her in 3 sessions ago. The woman had her children removed last month because they were left at school 3 hours past school ending, and someone attempted to drop her children off. She was overdosing on heroin. In no length of time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So this happened last month, and it was 3 hours past school. And the woman reports that she struggles with episodes of depression and would use heroin to cope with them. Since being in treatment, in no length of time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for 3 sessions, she reports struggling with insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger. What is the first thing the social worker should do in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how answer the question. This is an application question. Why? It's clients know that we have to react in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym D, answer choice, each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at. In particular, A, provide information on the symptoms of withdrawal for heroin to validate what she is currently experiencing. This is educate. Why? Because it's us providing information that she can utilize in the session today. B, provide information regarding depression to the woman and refer her to a psychiatrist to address her symptoms. This is going to be a facilitate. Why? Because it's F equals a friend, and we're connecting her to another professional for assistance, and she would subsequently still be working with us. And it's not going to be an educate, because the purpose of why we're providing the information is to connect her to the psychiatrist to address her depressive symptoms. C, gather information on the ways the woman has coped with depression in the past that did not involve heroin. This is an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data and help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. D, facilitate discussion around the woman's situation and identify what she would like to accomplish in treatment. And this is going to be feelings. Why? Because us getting her direct perspective of what's going on with him for the situation. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So quick review: social worker, family agency, that's who we are, where we're at. 35-year-old female, that's our client. Third session. You know, like the time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. Upon referral of Child Protective Services, upon referral of Child Protective Services, upon referral of Child Protective Services to gain custody of her children back. So that's what she's coming in for. The woman had her children removed last month. You know, like the time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So a month ago, because they were left at school 3 hours past school. You know, like the time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. And when someone attempted to drop her children off, she was found overdosing on heroin. The woman reports that she struggles with episodes of depression and would use heroin to cope with them. Since being in treatment, you know, like the time, hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So for 3 sessions, she's been in treatment. She reports struggling with insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger. So keep all in mind. Just go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out B. Why? If we look back at the question, the woman states that she struggles with episodes of depression. Therefore, I'm not going to provide her information on episodes of depression or symptoms of depression and then say, you need to go and see a psychiatrist, because that's me telling her what she should be doing and how to solve her problem. So she already knows that she has episodes of depression. So me providing information to her regarding episodes of depression is not going to help her. In addition to that, nowhere in the question does it state that she wants to see a psychiatrist in any way, shape, or form, or that she's not already seeing one. So B is just jumping like a cat that got squirted with water and is bad news, bad vibes, because it's not going with where the client actually wants to go. We're also going to rule out D. Why? Because if we look back at the question, it is her 3rd session. Therefore, we've already identified a treatment plan. In addition to that, if we look back at the question, she's coming in upon referral of Child Protective Services, and her main goal is to get her children back. So therefore, I'm not going to be like, you know what? Tell me about your situation and how you think I can help you, because we're already past that point. And even though says feelings, do not just get yourself caught up and say, you know what, it must always be the top of the acronym, because it needs to be the meaning of the answer choice relative to the question. So it's our third session, and we already know why she wants to come in. So I'm not going to say, tell me more about your situation and what you want to accomplish, because again, it's her third session, and she's coming in to gain custody of her children back. Now I'm in between. A, provide information on the symptoms of withdrawal for heroin to validate what she's currently experiencing, or C, gather information on the ways the woman has coped with depression in the past that did not involve heroin. So if I look back at the question, family agency, 35-year-old female, third session, CPS, gained children back, her children removed last month, so 30 days ago, because they were left at school 3 hours past school ending, and when somebody attempted to drop them off, she was found overdosing on heroin, so her drug of choice was heroin. She reports that she struggles with episodes of depression and that she would cope with her episodes of depression why she's using heroin. So her purpose of using heroin is that she wants to cope with her depressive episodes. So since being in treatment, she struggles with insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger. So within that, do I want to say, hey, here's information on the withdrawal symptoms from heroin, or you know what, how have you coped with episodes of depression in the past? So if we think about that, if this woman was using heroin, and be contradictory to her treatment goal, which is to get her children back. In addition to that, if her children were removed last month, we could imagine that her last use was last month, and heroin withdrawal symptoms are typically going to be 3 to 5 days after that. In addition to that, if we think about this, if somebody is telling us they have insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger, are we automatically going to assume and lean towards the withdrawal symptoms from heroin? Or are we going to say, you know what, you have episodes of depression and you would use heroin to cope with those, so therefore we're going to rule out A, because nowhere in the question is it assuming that she's going to be using heroin at this given point. So in order for somebody to be withdrawn from heroin, they must actively be using heroin. So if we think about it, insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger are associated with episodes of depression. Therefore, if we look back, she would use heroin to cope with her episodes of depression. So if she wants her children back, she must be able to maintain sobriety. So the best way that we can assist her is to gather information on ways that she's coped with her episodes of depression in the past that did not involve heroin, because it's not going to be possible for us to be like, you know what, you're no longer going to have episodes of depression, but if she has episodes of depression, how can she respond in a way that's not going to be causing her to go back to using heroin in some way, shape, or form? So A's and cracks, we're not going to assume that she's using heroin, because again, last month her children were removed. She wants to get her children back. She's been doing well, and she states that she struggles with episodes of depression, which insomnia, lack of appetite, and episodes of anger would be consistent with episodes of depression. So we're not going to be like, all right, let me tell you information on withdrawal symptoms for heroin so you're better equipped and prepared, because nowhere in the question does it say that she's actively using or that we have any indications that she's relapsed. B's and cracks, we're not going to give her information on depression, because again, she already told us that she has episodes of depression, and we're not going to jump like a cat that got squirted with water and assume that she wants to be connected to a psychiatrist or that she's not already connected to a psychiatrist. This is up to our client whether they're going to be taking medications or pursuing those additional services. And D's and cracks, because it's her third session, and we're not going to be like, you know what do you want to accomplish in treatment? Because she already told us it's her third session, and CPS sent her so she can get her children back. So we can imagine that her treatment goal is to get her children back and to maintain sobriety and better cope with her episodes of depression, because she would have episodes of depression, use heroin, which caused her children to be removed. So the correct answer here is C. Gather information on the ways the woman has coped with depression in the past, because the main way that she would cope with depression is heroin. So therefore, we're not going to imagine that a 35-year-old female has never coped with heroin or never coped with her episodes of depression without heroin. So therefore, the correct answer is C. Gather information on ways the woman has coped with depression in the past that did not involve heroin. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 3. A social worker in a private practice has been working with a married couple for 5 sessions to help them address issues they have experienced due to previous infidelity. The couple has been exploring ways to build trust in the relationship and to increase the amount of open communication that they have. During the most recent session, the husband reports that he has been feeling jealous of his wife's friends because she's been spending more time with them than with him. The wife reports that she did not mean to hurt her husband. What should the social worker do next in this situation? A. Facilitate discussion around the wife's perspective of spending time with her friends to better understand the situation. B. Provide information to the couple regarding boundaries to allow for them to strengthen their relationship. C, allow for the couple to utilize these skills that they have gained in treatment to continue strengthening their relationship. D, explore what caused the husband to become jealous when his wife was away from him to better understand the situation. If we look back at the question, we're a social worker in a private practice. That's who we are and where we are at. We're working with a married couple. So those are our clients for 5 sessions in a length of time. Hop on topics. I'll just paint the picture of what we're looking at to help address issues that they've experienced due to previous infidelities. So that is what brought them in 5 sessions ago. The couple has been exploring ways to build trust in the relationship, increase the amount of open communication that they have. So that's what they've been doing for the past 5 sessions. During the most recent session, in a length of time, hop on topics. I'll spin the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now, the husband, so half of our client system, reports that he's feeling jealous of his wife's friends because she has been spending more time with them than with him. And the wife reports, so the other half of the client system, that she did not mean to hurt her husband. So that was her response to what her husband shared with her. So what should the social worker do next in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. This is an application question. Why? Because it's client scenario that we have to react to in the best way that we know how. So let's apply the acronym D. Change your choice. E. Change your choice back to the question. Let's see what we're looking at in particular. A, facilitate discussion around the wife's perspective of spending time with her friends to better understand the situation. This is going to be feelings. Why? Because it's getting her direct perspective of what's going on with him for this situation. B, provide information to the couple regarding boundaries to allow for them to strengthen their relationship. This is educate. Why? Because it's us providing information that they can utilize in the session today. C, allow for the couple to utilize these skills that they've gained in treatment to continue strengthening their relationship. This is going to be feelings. Why? Because it's allowing for them to have the right self-determination and to empower themselves in some way, shape, or form. D, explore what caused the husband to become jealous when his wife was away from him to better understand the situation. This is feelings. Why? Because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for the situation. Let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, private practice. That's who we are. We're at married couple, married couple, married couple. So the couple is our clients. 5 sessions in a length of time. Hop on topics. I'll expand the picture of what we're looking at. So that's how long we've been doing the dang thing to help them address issues they've experienced due to previous infidelity. That's what brought them in 5 sessions ago. The couple have been exploring ways to build trust in their relationship and to increase the amount of open communication that they have. Things have been going better during the most recent session. In a length of time, hop on topic because I'll expand the picture of what we're looking at. The husband, the half of the client system that has been feeling jealous of his wife's friends and that she's been spending more time with them than with him in the wife reports. So the other half of the client system that she did not mean to hurt her husband. So keep all their mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out B. Why? Nowhere in the question does it state that there are any boundary issues, that are any boundary violations in any way, shape, or form. Because at this given moment, we have the husband, half of the client system. He shares his perspective. I've been feeling jealous of my wife's friends. She's spending more time with them than with me. And the wife says, you know what? I did not mean to hurt my husband. So boundary issues would not be present because they're able to effectively communicate. Because if we look back at the question, their main goals have been to build trust and to have open communication, which is what occurred during the most recent session. So now we're in between A, C, and D. A, facilitate discussion around the wife's perspective of spending time with her friends to better understand the situation. C, allow for the couple to utilize the skills that they've gained in treatment to continue strengthening their relationship. Or D, explore what caused the husband to become jealous when his wife was away from him to better understand the situation. Let's look back at the question. Social worker, private practice, couple, 5 sessions. There were issues of infidelity. The couple's been exploring ways to build trust and increase open communication. So things are getting better. Most recent session. In a length of time, hop on topic because I'll expand the picture of what we're looking at. The husband, half of the client system, he feels jealous of his wife's friends because she's spending more time with them. She's like, I didn't mean to hurt you. So for that reason, we're going to eliminate A and D. Why? Because A is going to be saying, you know what? Tell me what you enjoy about spending time with your friends, which could rile up the husband because, again, he says he's feeling jealous and he's vulnerable. So A's like, you know what? Tell me what you like about hanging out with your friends. She's like, it's going to be awesome, which is going to make the husband even more angry. And D's incorrect because I'm not going to be like, you know what? Tell me what makes you jealous of your wife's friends when she's away from you because he just wants to spend time with her. So the correct answer here is C, allow for the couple to utilize the skills they've gained in treatment to continue strengthening their relationship because at this moment, their goal was to build trust in the relationship and have more open communication. So what we would want to do is take a step back and allow for the clients to feel empowered and utilize what they've been doing in session to do the dang thing on their own, because the goal of all social work is to empower people to become the best possible versions of themselves and no longer need us in their process. A is incorrect, because we're not going to only talk to half of the client system and say, what is it like for you to spend time with your friends, because it's going to rile the husband up and make him feel even worse. Bad moves, bad vibes. B is incorrect, because nowhere in the question does it talk about any boundary issues or that boundaries are being ruptured or overstepped because the husband brought up an issue. And the wife responds in an effective manner of like, you know what, I didn't mean to hurt you, so we can sit back and allow for them to openly communicate and identify a solution on their own. And D's incorrect, so I'm not going to be like, you know what made you feel jealous of your wife and your wife's friends when she was away from you? Because we're not going to guilt trip the wife and be like, you know what, this is what you're doing to your husband. So C is the correct answer, because 1, they are doing well in treatment. 2, they're effectively communicating and they're not fighting, coming at each other's necks or trying to hurt anybody. So therefore, as a social worker, we would take a back seat and allow for our clients to take the front seat, slap the gas, and become the best possible versions of themselves. So the correct answer here is C, allow for the couple to utilize the skills that they've gained in treatment to continue strengthening their relationship. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 4. A social worker in an outpatient clinic has been working with a 52-year-old transgender male for 2 sessions to help cope with the stressors in his life. During the intake assessment, the man informed the social worker that he's been feeling overwhelmed with wanting to prioritize his health, yet having to work to pay his bills. The man has been coping with the stress in his life by self-harming without the intention of completing suicide, because that is how both of his parents died. During the most recent session, the man reports that his girlfriend broke up with him and that he has been blaming himself. What is the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? A, inquire about any suicidal ideations that the man has experienced since the breakup to ensure that he is safe. B, gather information around how the man has been coping with the breakup to better understand this situation. C, process the man's feelings regarding the breakup and gather information around any suicidal ideations that he's experienced to ensure that he is safe. D, facilitate discussion around what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective of the situation. Let's look back at the question. Social worker, outpatient clinic, that is who we are and where we are at. Working with a 52-year-old transgender male that is our client for 2 sessions in a length of time. Hop on top of it, because let's paint the picture of what we're looking at to help cope with the stressors in his life. So that's what brought him in 2 sessions ago. During the intake assessment, in a length of time, hop on top of it, because let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 2 sessions ago, the man informed the social worker that he's been feeling overwhelmed and with wanting to prioritize his health, yet having to work to pay his bills. So he has a dilemma that's going on. The man has been coping with the stress in his life by self-harming without the intention of completing suicide, because that is how both of his parents died. During the most recent session, in a length of time, hop on Salvik, so let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now? The man reports that his girlfriend broke up with him and that he's blaming himself. What is the best thing for the social worker to do in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how you answer the question. This is an application question. Why? Because as clients know that we have to react to the best of the we know how. So let's apply the acronym D, chance or choice E, chance or choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, inquire about any suicidal ideations that the man has experienced since the breakup to ensure that he is safe. This is going to be a safety assess. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Assess, why? Because it's gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form, but it's also bad moves, bad vibes, and we'll let the question determine that in just a second. B, gather information around how the man has been coping with the breakup to better understand the situation. This is an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. C, process the man's feelings regarding the breakup and gather information around any suicidal ideations that he's experienced to ensure that he is safe. This is a safety feelings. Why? Because safety, it's potential safety issue. Feelings, why? Because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for the situation, but also bad moves, bad vibes, and we'll let the question determine that in just a second. D, facilitate discussion around what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective of the situation. This is the feelings by him because it's getting his direct perspective of what's going on with him for the situation. So let's look back at the question to see what we're looking at in particular. So quick review. Social worker outpatient clinic. That's who we are. We're at 52-year-old transgender male. That's our client. 2 sessions. In a length of time. Hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So that's how long we've been doing the dang thing to help him cope with stressors in his life. That's what brought him in 2 sessions ago during the intake assessment. In a length of time. Hop on top of it because I'll paint the picture of what we're looking at. So 2 sessions ago, the man informed social worker that he's been feeling overwhelmed with wanting to prioritize his health, yet has to work to pay his bills. The man has been coping with stress in his life by self-harm without the intention of completing suicide, because that's how both of his parents died during the most recent session. In a length of time, hop on top of it, so let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So what's going on right now. The man reports that his girlfriend broke up with him and that he has been blaming himself. So keep all in mind. Let's go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out A. Why? Because I am not going to ask the man what makes you experience this, because at this given moment he stated that he has been self-harming without the intention of completing suicide, because that's how both of his parents passed away. So I'm not going to ask him, you know what, have you had any suicidal ideations to ensure that he is safe, because he doubted the fact that he would be able to do that. He said, I'm self-harming without the intention of completing suicide. So I'm not just going to jump like a cat that got squirted with water in action and have my cape on like a superhero and say, you know what, you probably want to kill yourself because he's self-harming without the intention of completing suicide. And we're also going to rule out C. Yes, it does say feelings, because we want to make sure that the client feels heard, but we're not automatically just going to jump into that safety mode of like, you know what, have you had any suicidal ideations? Because he stated in the question he has self-harm without the intention of completing suicide, because that's how both of his parents passed away. And that was during the intake assessment. That was only 2 sessions ago. So I'm not just going to jump in and be like, you know what, you probably want to kill yourself, because self-harm does not equate to suicide. Self-harm does not equate to suicide. So therefore, A and C are both bad moves, bad vibes, because it's not in the question to be a viable answer. And a lot of times people get angry and say, well, Phil, I need to rule out safety first, or man, I need to go with the feelings. But in the situation, the man has already told us, you know what, I will not kill myself because that's how both my parents died. So A is just going to be abrasive on the client of like, all right, I'm just kind of curious, like, George, do you want to kill yourself? When he already told us 2 sessions ago, I'm never going to kill myself because that's how both of my parents died. And C, I'm not going to be like, man, this must be really tough. But on the back end, invalidate his feelings and be like, hey, do you want to kill yourself? So now we're in between B, gather information around how the man has been coping with the breakup to better understand the situation, or D, facilitate discussion around what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective of the situation. If we look back at the question, outpatient clinic, that's who we are, where we're at, 52-year-old transgender male, 2 sessions. In a length of time, hop on top of it. So that's how long we've been doing the dang thing. Stressors in his life. He's finding it overwhelming to prioritize his health, but also needing to pay bills and get cashed out to make sure he sustains life. He copes it with stress in his life by self-harming without the intention of completing suicide. Both of his parents died by suicide, and he went through a breakup and he's been blaming himself. So for that reason, we're going to rule out B. Why? Because in the question it states that he's been coping with stressors and just coping in general by self-harming. So B is like, how are you coping? He already told us. So the correct answer here is D. Facilitate discussion around what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective, because we need to utilize and state in the question not just one detail, not just what we think is good in the question, but what is actually in the question. A is incorrect because in the question it states he's no motivation or intentions of completing suicide, because that's how both of his parents died. So that's bad moves, bad vibes. B is incorrect. We're not going to be like, you know what, how are you coping? Because he said his main coping skill is self-harming. And the C is incorrect. We're not going to be like, man, this must be really tough, but do you want to kill yourself? Because in the question he said without the intention of completing suicide, because that's how both of his parents died. So he has a huge motivation of not completing suicide. So the correct answer here is D. Facilitate discussion on what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective, because again, we need to understand where he's coming from, why he's blaming himself, where he wants to go, and how we can help him. So the correct answer here is D. Facilitate discussion around what is causing the man to blame himself for the breakup to better understand his perspective of the situation. So that's how we look at that question in particular. Question 5. A social worker in a community mental health clinic is completing an intake assessment with a 40-year-old female that was recently discharged from the hospital. The woman reports that she stopped taking her medications and that her boyfriend took her to the hospital because, quote unquote, I was talking to myself and not making sense. The woman reports that she hears voices that tell her to kill herself and that other people, yet denies any motivation to act on them. The woman reports that she smokes marijuana, and at times it makes her mental health symptoms worse. The woman reports that she would like to find employment to improve her situation. What should the social worker do first in this situation? A. Gather information regarding the voices that the woman hears and gauge the likelihood that she will act on them. B. Gather information regarding the woman's marijuana use to better understand her situation. C. Provide the woman a list of employment services that she can utilize to obtain employment. D. Work with the woman to identify strategies that she can utilize to cope with her mental health symptoms to improve her situation. So let's look back at the question. Social worker, community mental health clinic. That's who we are and where we're at. Completed an intake assessment in like the time. Hop on, solve it, Excel. Let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So it's our first time meeting with a 40-year-old female. That is our client that was recently discharged from the hospital. The woman reports that she stopped taking her medications and her boyfriend took her to the hospital because I was, quote unquote, talking to myself and not making any sense. So that's what put her in the hospital. The woman reports that she hears voices that tell her to kill herself and other people, yet denies any motivation to act on them. The woman reports that she smokes marijuana and at times it makes her mental health symptoms worse. The woman reports that she would like to find employment to improve her situation. What should the social worker do first in this situation? First, next, best, most, and should all mean the same thing. So do not let one word dictate how answer the question. This is an application question. Let's apply the acronym to each answer choice back to the question to see what we're looking at in particular. A, gather information regarding the voices that the woman hears and gauge the likelihood that she will act on them. This is going to be a safety assess. Safety, why? Because it's a potential safety issue. Assess, why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. B, gather information regarding the woman's marijuana use to better understand her situation. This is an assess. Why? Because it's us gathering clinical data to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. C, provide the woman a list of employment services that she can utilize to obtain employment. This is advocate. Why? A equals all by themselves, because we're providing the needed information, resources, and services, and the client would subsequently have to do it on their own. D, work with a woman to identify strategies that she can utilize to cope with her mental health symptoms to improve her situation. This is going to be an intervene. Why? Because it's us doing an action. I equals I do something to help progress the therapeutic process in some way, shape, or form. Let's look back at the question and see what we're looking at in particular. So, quick review. Social worker, community mental health clinic. That's who we are, where we're at. Intake assessment. Like the time. Hop on topic. So let's paint the picture of what we're looking at. So it's our first time meeting with a 40-year-old female. That's her client. She was recently discharged from the hospital. The woman reports that she stopped taking her medications and her boyfriend took her to the hospital. That's why she was discharged. She stated, I was talking to myself and not making any sense. So that's why her boyfriend took her there. The woman reports that she hears voices that tell her to kill herself and to kill other people, yet denies any motivation to act on them. And reports that she smokes marijuana, and at times it makes her mental health symptoms worse. And the one reports that she would like to find employment to improve her situation. So keep all in mind to go through each answer choice. So right off the bat, we're going to rule out A. Why? Because if we look back at the question, she states that she denies any motivation to act on them. She states, you know what? I hear voices that tell me to kill myself and kill other people, but I don't want to act on them. So A is like, you know what? Tell me about those voices and what they're telling you when they say to kill yourself and to kill other people, and would you act on them? When she already told us, denies any motivation. Therefore, it's bad news, bad vibes, because we're jumping and reassuring and ignoring what the client has already told us. Because if she already told us, I'm not going to act on these, and then we say, you know what, are you going to act on them? We're not listening to the doggone client. We're also going to rule out C. Why? Because I'm not just going to willy-nilly just hand her a list of employment services. Yes, the last sentence states, you know what, she wants to find employment, but there are many different concerns that are being presented in the question, and it's an intake assessment, so I need to better understand how this woman wants to be assisted with and for her situation. So I can't just read the last sentence and be like, employment, boom, I'm out, ejecto seat, everything is going to be great. And that's why I always say, don't just go with the shortcuts, because the shortcuts are simply going to cut you short. Now we're in between B, gather information regarding the woman's marijuana use to better understand her situation, or D, work with a woman to identify strategies that she can utilize to cope with her mental health symptoms to improve her situation. If we look back at the question, social worker or community mental health clinic, that's where we're at. Intake, first time, 40-year-old female. She just got out of the hospital. She stopped taking her medications. Her boyfriend took her to the hospital because she was not making any sense. She states that she hears voices that tell her to kill herself and other people, but denies any motivation to act on them. She smokes marijuana, and at times they make her mental health symptoms worse. And then she states that she wants employment. So it's only a temporary thing because only at times is this occurring. So I'd be like, you know what? Tell me about the times where your marijuana use is making things worse, or when are you smoking marijuana? What is marijuana doing for you? Or would I be like, you know what? Here's a list of strategies, or here's things that you can do to make your mental health symptoms better. So for that reason, we're going to rule out D. Why? Because if I don't understand what her mental symptoms are, or mental health symptoms, when they are worse, when they're better in general, I can't really assist her, because D is just being like, you know what? I have a solution to your problem. They're getting worse. Here's how you're not going to act on your voices, even though she denies any motivation. So therefore, we need to understand the other mental health symptoms that she's experiencing. So the correct answer here is B. Gather information regarding the one's marijuana use to better understand her situation. Why? Because she's stating when she smokes marijuana, at times, only part of the time, that her mental health symptoms are getting worse. And the only mental health symptoms that we're aware of is the fact that she's hearing voices that tell her to kill herself and to kill other people, but denies them. Therefore, we're going to understand what is marijuana use doing for you, what is marijuana not doing for you, and what makes them worse, what makes them better, etc. Because if somebody has mental health symptoms and they're being intensified or made worse or more severe by something, we'd want to understand specifically when, why, and how that's actually occurring. A's incorrect. Already in the question, it says she denies any motivation to act on the voices that she hears, so we're going to trust our clients and not think they're lying. C's incorrect, because even though it says the last sentence she wants employment services, we need to understand more specifically about the woman, what mental health symptoms, how we can reduce recidivism in the hospital, and what in particular does she want to see, and what are some barriers to the employment, etc. And D is incorrect, so I'm not going to be like, you know what, I already know your mental health symptoms, it's only the voices, but we don't know that, because she says the voices and then says other mental health symptoms. In addition to that, we're not just going to provide her a solution and say, you know what, this is what you need to do, even though we don't know her because we just met her at this given moment. So in that case, we have to meet our client where they're at, truly understand where they want to go in order for us to best assist them. And if somebody says that they're hearing voices and that they have other mental health symptoms and it's made worse by something such as smoking marijuana, we would want to explore her marijuana use. What is it doing for her? What it's not doing for her? And what in particular does it mean that things are getting worse? And what would it look like for things to get better? So the correct answer here is B. Gather information regarding the woman's marijuana use to better understand the situation before proceeding. So again, the correct answer here is B. Gather information regarding the woman's marijuana use to better understand her situation. And at this point, if you're like me and Phil, I didn't get as many questions right as I want to, remember that my questions tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So do not beat yourself up, but review them, understand how you're getting to each of the different answers, so that way you can become the best possible version of yourself. Because way too many times people are going to jump and beat themselves up and tear themselves down. So give yourself the credit and identify what in particular do you want to see. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you found the questions difficult enough and that you took at least one thing from those questions. And again, do not expect yourself to get them all right. And if you didn't do as well as you thought that you would, that's okay. Rerun through them, understand, and take at least one lesson from each of those questions, because it's not what you do perfectly that's going to take you along the best trail. It's what you take from each of the lessons and situations that you can. So from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. Take care, be safe. If you need anything, drop me a shout. But again, do not let one thought, one situation, one person, or anything take you outside of what you know to be true. Keep building yourself up. Keep doing the next right thing. Do not let anything get inside of your mind, because you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. And there's no me without you guys. So from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. I love you. And I hope to see you in the Sunday study groups. Hope to see you in individual tutoring, the one-day courses, or at any capacity. Drop a comment down below or anything. Hope to see you guys around. And you guys need anything, drop me a shout. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Like I said, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate every single one of you guys. It's amazing how big the Fill in the Gaps community has gotten and how many people are repping and rocking with me. And I can't say it enough. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm getting the heck out of here. Keep building yourself up. Keep doing the next right thing. And peace out, guys.